Good morning. Hi, everybody. Pardon me. Glad you could join us this morning. Eileen, hey, good morning. Looks like a beautiful day today. All right. So let's begin. We're going to start by just settling in, getting mind and body together in the same place. And as always, we want to start with our bodhicitta motivation. Bodhicitta is the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, which includes ourselves. And we'll be talking more about that today. So we bring to our heart the suffering of others, humans, animals, beings in other realms. And out of the compassion we feel for their suffering and knowing the cause of suffering being this ultimately a kind of fundamental ignorance called marikva. And knowing that the way to eradicate this ignorance is by attaining enlightenment. So that's how that logic works. But we can at least think, may the time we spent together this morning benefit not only ourselves, but others as well. And Sanda Samgarab Shiri Sen Pemakarajabani Shuna, so Nakmata Dingasaso, Kataramanamasu, Omi Chiki, Ki Pojane, Dusum Sangi, Gungi, Hone, and some Chipane Sunta. So animation plus so what? Okay. So this morning, hold on a second. Okay. All right. Just had to check some technical thing. So this morning we're going to talk about this question that Melina sent in last week that I wanted a minute to look at. Pardon me for one second. So I'll just read you a question and then we'll go from there. She says, this morning I came across this quote from the foreword of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche's Lojong book regarding Tonglen. So Lojong means mind training, and Tonglen is a practice called the practice of exchange, which is a type of meditation where, which we'll be doing today, where we take on the suffering of others and offer them our own happiness. So that's what those two words mean. So the quote is, we expect, hang on, my eyes are so bad. We expand our field of self-awareness to accept others and be of benefit to them. We do this not because we are martyrs or have suppressed our self-concern, but because we have begun to accept ourselves and our world, unquote. And this is Melina again. As you well know, many of us growing up in a Western Christian context were given no other tools to address self-centeredness besides suppression of our own needs and martyrdom. For those who have tried very hard to be capital G, capital C, good Christians, and capital G, capital P, good people, those patterns of self-suppression may run very deep. Can you say a few words on how we can recognize and overcome those and develop the awareness that concern for others includes ourselves? Then she continues, I realize there are ties here to the four mind changes, interdependence, etc. All that basic Dharma stuff addresses this. But as recovering Christians, getting used to those concepts, let alone integrating them into our lives, is already an uphill battle. getting back to the quote, maybe the answer is there. How can we most gently, lovingly, generously, and skillfully begin to accept ourselves and our world? Okay, so quite. Melina said it was a doozy, and she's correct. It's a bit of a doozy. I hope she is either here or gets to see this later, but I will let her know. So there's a few points here in this question that can be addressed. The first is, what I said earlier, which is, we want to attain enlightenment, not only for others, but also for ourselves. I'm smiling because there's a deer just laying down in my backyard. And the deer are like the symbol of the teaching. So it's kind of cool. If you see, often you'll see, and if you look at our website, you'll see it's our banner, it's our header banner. And it's like two deer facing a wheel. And that's like the wheel of teachings. And the story is the Buddha giving teachings in Deer Park, and the deer attended the teachings very attentively. So I just love that there's a deer back there right now. Anyway, so yes, as someone, I was raised Catholic. And we're kind of not really given the tools to work with self-centeredness or perceived self-centeredness, apart from what Melina stated, kind of just suppressing it, essentially just suppressing it, usually with a large dollop of guilt included in that. So the Buddhist path is something that is really quite different from any other spiritual path in many ways. And one of the ways is that guilt doesn't really have a place in Buddhism. Okay, we're not encouraged to feel guilty, or made to feel guilty. We might feel guilty, but that's not coming from the teachings or the teacher. That's coming from us. Sorry. um Especially if we were raised that way, then we can kind of um twist the teachings. Not really, it's kind of too strong of a word, but we can kind of color the teachings with our own guilt or our own pride or our own jealousy or whatever. I've talked about this before. So when the teachings talk about kind of not being self-centered, um, it's not an invitation to guilt. It's an invitation to awareness. It's an invitation to compassion, to seeing others. If we're always looking at ourselves, and if we're, kind of putting ourselves first all the time, then there's really no space. There's like no room for compassion there, right? Because like we don't even see others. So it's a matter of working on our compassion, which will naturally lower our self-centeredness. Okay. And everything in this path, or I don't know everything because I don't know everything, but a lot of things on this path um, um, work in that way. It's not that we're fighting the negative, right? It's that we're making progress in the good. We are doing our best to, if we're doing our best to generate compassion, to grow our compassion, to think of our compassion, then the opposite qualities will naturally decrease, right? So the more compassion we have, the less self-centeredness we have, the more patience we have, the less anger we have. We don't have to fight the negative qualities. We just have to try to develop the positive qualities. Okay. Let's just go back to this question. Um, how we can recognize and overcome those patterns of self-suppression and develop the awareness that concern for others includes ourselves. So the other factor there is that Hold on a second. What's happening here? The other factor there is the twofold goal. It's called the twofold goal. So it's literally like enshrined in the teachings, right? That the twofold goal is the um, wish for enlightenment for ourselves and others. Thinking of others and doing practices like Tonglen and all of that is not self-erasure. We are including ourselves in that. But there's so much emphasis on thinking of others and working towards others and putting others first, because we have such a strong habit of doing the opposite. Okay, so that's why there has to be emphasis on that. Just like all the teachings of the Buddha are there, but we might emphasize one thing over another depending on who we are talking to, right? So, or depending on what we need ourselves. So let's say that we have a big problem with anger. We're not going to emphasize the teachings on jealousy or I don't know, on whatever, pride or self or greed or something. We're going to emphasize the teachings on anger because that's what we have to deal with, right? So it's the same that, you know, we are taught these things, think of others, put others first, do this practice of Tonglen and all of that, to work against this really, well, even though I just said don't fight against, but to deal with, to work with the really strong habit we've had, or, at least in this life, even if we don't accept past and future lives. But if we do accept past and future lives, then we're talking about lifetimes upon lifetimes of having this really strong habit. That's why it's emphasized. And it's emphasized because without bodhicitta, we can't attain enlightenment. We literally cannot. We could do every other practice in the world. We could do the highest practices out there, the most esoteric gobbledygook that we want to do. But if we don't have bodhicitta, we'll never attain enlightenment. Okay? So that's why those things are emphasized. It's not to punish us or make us feel bad about ourselves or not care about ourselves at all and all this kind of stuff. Okay? It is to help us attain enlightenment. So I want to look at this question again. Given other tools to address us to expression of our own needs of martyrdom, this may run very deep. I want to look at the quote of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche again regarding the practice of Tonglen. So that's that practice of exchange. We expand our field of self-awareness to accept others and be of benefit to them. So we expand our field of self-awareness, expand. He doesn't say get rid of, remove, right? He's saying make your world wider, make your mandala bigger, make your circle bigger so you can include others. So that right now, typically our circle's very small. It has a population of one, right? Or maybe a population of four, let's say, or something, just the people we love, right? And us, like that's our sort of area of concern. And what he's saying here is, make that circle wider so we're including everyone, okay? And we're accepting others, we're accepting them, right? Normally what we're doing is we're pushing away. We have very sort of rigid walls, and we sort of put a moat around ourselves, and we're just like, these people are allowed in my castle, everybody else can F off. That's really what we're doing, right? So we're not accepting them at all, much less showing them love or compassion or anything. We're just out and out rejecting them. So he's saying, accept them, widen your circle, accept others, and be of benefit to them. Like that's a really important key piece here, is that we are trying not only to accept others or to have compassion for others, but to be of benefit to them. That's the whole purpose of this path. All the work that we do, all the study that we do, the contemplation that we do, our efforts to do our formal practice and to behave properly when we're not practicing, all of that ultimately is for the benefit of others, right? So then Rinpoche continues, we do this not because we are martyrs, and this is something that is very common misconception when people first hear of this practice of Tonglen, because what did I say? At its essence, what we're doing is we're taking on the suffering of others and we're giving away our own happiness. It does look, at first glance, it looks like martyrdom, okay? It looks like total self-abnegation, but that's not what it is, okay? That is working, like turning our ego upside down. Because that habit is so strong, we need a strong remedy for it. Okay. We need a strong antidote, a strong, counterpoint to that to move even a little bit. In this kind of case, I think of like like you hear about sort of Olympic athletes, right? Let's say you're talking about the long jump, okay? The athlete in their mind doesn't think about the the line that they want to reach, okay? They think way past the line that they want to reach. They're visualizing that. Like let's say they have to go whatever it is, I don't know, 13 feet. They're thinking 30 feet. That's what they're aiming for, is like 30 feet. Yeah. So that when they make that jump, they might reach 13 because their mind is aiming for something even beyond that. So it's a little bit like that, right? We're sort of trying for something greater, something extreme almost, right? So that maybe we can move this habit a little bit, in the right direction. So we do this not because we are martyrs or have suppressed our self-concern. We still have self-concern, but because we have begun to accept ourselves and our world. So Trungpa Rinpoche is so, so skillful in many ways, and I highly recommend, any book by him. We're actually on Wednesday evenings from 6:30 to 8, where we have a class where we're studying his text called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. In 2 weeks, we're going to start the second session, and you can join in that class if you like. He's so insightful and wonderful teacher. So, but because we have begun to accept ourselves and our world. So again, we're including ourselves here. We're accepting ourselves. This practice of Tonglen, there's a point, and I'll explain it more later, where we work with an individual, okay? And then the next step is we work with all beings, but the third step is we work with an individual. And the categories are someone we love, someone who's neutral to us. So that's like we neither like nor dislike them. So it could be like a work colleague, a neighbor, something like that. Like we recognize them, but we don't have any particular feeling about them. Someone we dislike, and ourselves. So we can do this Tonglen for ourselves, to develop compassion for ourselves. And this is, in fact, something that, Westerners in particular really need, right? On one hand, we can surely appear to be very self-centered, okay? But on the other hand, like, we're also very critical of ourselves and, you know, dislike ourselves. And this is a quality, a characteristic, let's say, is a better word, of our culture, which is a little strange. And I remember the Dalai Lama was asked a question when he first started, early on when he started teaching Westerners. Someone said, "Well, how do we handle, self-hatred?" And he just didn't even understand. He was like, "What? You know, what are you talking about? I had never even heard of that." So this is something that like Tibetans don't have an issue with. Other cultures don't have an issue with this, but for some reason we do. So we need to, in our culture, emphasize that kind of compassion for ourselves and to care for ourselves, but in a way, and actually one of these Saturdays, I think I'll talk about this. We have to be careful with that too, because it can very easily slide into mere selfishness and self-centeredness. Um, so, uh, but because we've begun to accept ourselves, so we need to accept ourselves, and accepting ourselves means accepting ourselves as we are. So, as we are has actually two sides to it. Okay. On one side, as we are, with all of our faults, okay, which are not easy to face and we don't want to see and we don't want to recognize. But like, if we don't recognize that, if we don't see that, then we can't progress, right? Because we don't know what the problem is. It's like having a sickness and not knowing what the sickness is. We have to know what it is in order to handle it, okay? So we have to see that. The other side, which can be more difficult, believe it or not, is to accept our enlightened nature, is to accept our power, our goodness, our pure heart, yeah? Which sometimes we feel a bit embarrassed about, or we feel, you know, yeah, shy about, but uncomfortable thinking, oh, I have XYZ good qualities, and I have Buddha nature, and I have this basic goodness in my heart. And like, we have to accept that too, okay? Not just our deficiencies, but our majesty, our purity, our wonderful loving heart, our nature, our true nature. Yeah. Our capacity to attain enlightenment. Sometimes we don't want to see that, yeah? And in fact, this kind of doubt, I forget what they call it, a specific word they call it, but this kind of doubt of like our ability to attain enlightenment is actually seen, I love it, is actually seen as a form of laziness, believe it or not. Why? Because if we just want to wallow in our self-doubt, that's a good excuse not to practice. So it's kind of a form of laziness, right? So we just want to feel like, well, what's the point of me practicing? I'm just a loser. I'm never going to get there anyway. What is the point? Right? So we have to look at that and sort of be like, no, you have full capacity. Get on your cushion, right? Okay. Uh, but because we accept ourselves and our world. So Tremper Mache, in this text anyway, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, um, he talks a lot about accepting reality and sort of, um, yeah, like being in touch with reality, opening ourselves up to reality, accepting things as they are. Yeah. Which we also very much tend to fight against. Yeah. We sort of create a kind of dream world, then we want to maintain our dream world where everything should work out, and you know we are our perfect being, that we never make a mistake, and I don't know, all kinds of crazy stuff, right? So I'm going to read his quote again. I'm talking about the practice of Tonglen. We expand our field of self-awareness to accept others and be of benefit to them. We do this not because we are martyrs or have suppressed our self-concern, but because we have begun to accept ourselves and our world. Pardon me. So Melina's essential question is, can you say a few words on how we can recognize and overcome the patterns of self-suppression, and develop the awareness that concern for others includes ourselves? So recognizing our patterns of self-suppression, I think, really just requires meditation. It requires us to be aware and to have the ability and the courage I mean, we have the ability for sure, but whether we want to use that ability or not is another story. Okay. So we need to have the courage to look at ourselves um, fully and to n- you know, to be honest with ourselves, okay? And in the ways that I described before, to be honest with ourselves, to say, oh, I'm feeling a lot of hatred right now, and to be honest with ourselves, to say, I'm I have Buddha nature, right? So why I bring meditation into that equation is because with like mindfulness or breathing practice, um, we learn to see what's happening in the mind. We get quite good at um, noticing what's happening, which like we all, before meditation, we're very unaware of that. We don't really know what's happening in our mind. We don't really pay attention to our thoughts, right? We just 100% immediately glom onto them as who we are and we identify with them. This is me. Okay. But with meditation, when we're doing this mindfulness of breathing practice, right, and we're focusing on the breath and we're just letting the thoughts come and go, we start to see experientially, not just intellectually, right, but experientially, that we are not our thoughts and emotions, right? That we are free of those things, that our thoughts and emotions are just energy, that just clouds moving through the sky. So the more we do that, the easier it becomes to, one, see what's actually happening in the mind, be aware of what's happening in the mind, and two, to not identify with that so strongly, to be able to just let that go. And three, to apply an antidote if necessary. Okay. So that's how we start to recognize those patterns, right, of self-suppression. Oh, I'm really just, wait a minute, I'm I'm seeing myself as a martyr right now. Is that what's happening? Am I being like a martyr? Because there's no instruction to be a martyr. We don't have to be a martyr. But there's a difference between, you know, caring for others and caring about others and putting others first and being a martyr. Okay. So weird. I remember, yeah, being raised Catholic, there's a lot of emphasis on martyrs. Um, what was I? Suppression. Mhm. Recognize the patterns of self-suppression and overcome them. So we have to recognize them first, and then we need to see, you know, it's challenging, it really is challenging because on one hand, like we want to be more compassionate, we want to be more giving, um um we want to progress on this path, right? And on the other hand, we don't want to be run over. We don't want to be crushed. We don't want to be a martyr. Okay. It's not healthy from the Buddhist point of view. It's not healthy, right? So that line between um, working to be kinder, more compassionate, more giving, etc., and erasing ourselves is something that we just have to find out for ourselves. It has to be a matter of trial and error, right? So a lot of times when people first encounter the teachings, they tend to really dive into the martyrdom aspect. Okay. They tend to, yeah, just figure, well, now I'm Bodhisattva, so I have to let everybody bulldoze over me, and I don't have any rights, and I'm not allowed to protect myself, and all that. This wrong understanding. Okay. So where we draw that line is an individual thing. And not only is it an individual thing, but it's a case by case basis. So it's not something we can just make one decision and it covers all cases. Okay. So in my case, when I first started out, And now it just really hasn't ended. I I look within, and I'm like, look at a situation, and I'm like, okay, um, you know, how can I apply the teachings here? Because that's my goal, right? Is to apply the teachings to my life, to apply the teachings to everything. So um, sometimes what I noticed is I would go too far. I would go, to the point of I don't know what this terminology she was using here, self-suppression, let's say. Okay. And then sometimes I wouldn't go far enough. I could have done more. Okay. So what I noticed was kind of weird, and it's just unique to me, maybe. I don't know, but it's just an example. You can take it or leave it as you like. But I would, if I went too far, I would start to feel nauseous. I would feel in my stomach like a little like uncomfortable. And if I didn't go far enough, I would feel a little guilty. So maybe in this case, feeling guilty is kind of useful. I don't know. But that's how I sort of learned, I would do something or not do something or do too much or not do enough. And then I would notice how it felt in my body. And then over time, I would just have to think about it. What if I did this? And then I would notice kind of how it felt, you know, and then I could make a decision how far to go, you know. So we want to progress, but we don't want to get to the point where we're kind of ruining ourselves. And even Shantideva, the king of compassion, right? He wrote the text, uh, um, The Way of the Bodhisattva. Even he says not to go beyond your capacity, okay? That if we have to be careful not to go beyond our capacity, because then essentially we will break and we won't be able to do anything for anybody. But again, that's a matter of trial and error that we just have to do ourselves. We have to test it out. Okay. Um, and overcome those. So recognizing the patterns and overcoming them is again a matter of accessing our innate wisdom and accessing the wisdom of the teachings. Um, then that concern for others includes ourselves. Okay. That concern for others includes ourselves. So we need to be concerned for ourselves as well as concerned for others. But we need to do that in a balanced and healthy manner. Okay. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question, Melina. I know that it's challenging, but like the whole path is challenging, and we all have our various um, proclivities, our individual habits, our own path. In a sense, we're all on our own path together. If that makes sense. So in Trungpa Rinpoche's text, for example, he says, talking about spiritual community, that we are walking the path together, but we shouldn't lean on each other, because if we're leaning on each other, if one person falls, everybody falls, right? So we're walking the path together, but we're all on our own path as well in that group. I don't know, because every person is individual, every person has their own strengths and weaknesses and their own karma and their own history and so forth, right? So you're welcome, sweetheart. So there are general instructions throughout, but inevitably we're going to approach those within the construct of our own mental emotional makeup. All right, so let's get to some meditation. Maybe give me 1 second. I really need some water. Hold on. So if anybody has any questions that you would like me or any topics you'd like me to discuss, send me an email, preferably at least a few days before Saturday. So I have a little time to consider the question and prepare an answer for you. Um, you can email info at sgb, as in boy, cc.org, or you can email me personally if you have my address. So, or you can put it in the comment section, not the chat, because the chat disappears. The comments don't disappear. So if you have a question, you can put it in the comment section, but the best is email. All right, so we're going to begin with meditation. Okay. Mindfulness to breathing meditation. So you want to take the posture. If you are sitting, my sweater's becoming see-through. If you're sitting on the bed or the floor, just cross your legs in whatever way is comfortable for you. If you are sitting in a chair, you just want your feet flat on the floor in front of you. So all the other instructions are the same. The main thing is that your back is straight, but relaxed. Your hands can be palms down on your knees or palms up resting in your lap or with your fingers on top and your thumbs touching like that. Whichever's more comfortable for you. Arms are relaxed. Okay. Shoulders are back a little bit. The back of the neck is also straight, so your chin's going to be tucked in a little bit. The mouth is closed but relaxed, tongue resting on the roof of the mouth. Breathing through the nose. The eyes are open, half open, looking down in front of you a few feet, the relaxed, lowered gaze. So we're going to start with mindfulness to breathing practice, and then we're going to move into Tonglen. Okay. So mindfulness to breathing practice, just bring your attention to bear on the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. So take a second to notice that sensation. Okay. So the aim of this practice is to maintain continuous, relaxed awareness of that sensation of the breath while we let thoughts just come and go. So we're trying to just let that process of thinking happen on its own and sort of not get involved in it, just keeping our awareness on the sensation of the breath, letting the thoughts come and go like clouds in the sky. So let's begin that now, please. If you get distracted, it's not a big deal, okay? Just bring your mind back to the breath. That's it. All right, so please start that now. Now you can begin to count the breaths, counting either every in-breath or every out-breath, for a total of 10 complete breaths. We count because counting helps us recognize more quickly if we've gotten distracted, because we will have lost count. So if that happens, we lose count. Just as soon as you recognize you got distracted, bring the mind back to the breath, start again at 1. You get to 10, don't let that fact distract you. Bring the mind back, start again at 1. So please begin that now. And now we're going to move into the Tonglen practice. So the first step is to just rest the mind. So different than focusing on the breath, which we've been doing, just let your mind settle into its natural state, being neither distracted nor focused, concentrated. Just let it be for a moment. We start that now. Okay. Now I'm going to just work with the visualization. So first imagine in your heart, so your heart center, which is the middle of your chest, very bright white light, like a shining star, light going in all directions. And then consider that you're breathing in gray smoke, hot, dark, and heavy. through all the pores of your body. And all of that smoke just dissolves into the white light in your heart center. So there's not a single particle of smoke left. There's only light. Now you're going to breathe out white light through all the pores of your body. It's cool, clean, clear, very bright. Breathe that out as far as the eye can see in every direction. And now we move on to the third step, which is individual, which I mentioned earlier, those 4 types of individuals, right? Someone you love, neutral, dislike, and yourself. So today we're going to do Tonglen for ourselves. So it's a little tricky, but it's not that hard. So just imagine in front of you another you, okay, facing you. So the you that is meditating is the part of yourself that is completely in touch with your basic goodness, your enlightened nature. And the you that you are visualizing is the part of yourself that is suffering and confused. Okay. And just picture that for a moment. So the first thing you want to do is to regard yourself with the same love and compassion that you extend to your friends and loved ones. So notice your many good qualities, your kindness, your intelligence, your sense of humor, your skills, how you try your best every day, whatever you notice in yourself that is good and positive. Look at that without embarrassment, without shyness. Just acknowledge those things, accepting who you are. Then bring to mind whatever ways you're currently suffering, and you know that better than anybody in the world. Physically, mentally, emotionally, life's challenges, whatever's going on for you, bring that to mind. Then generate compassion for yourself, just like you would for anyone else. Wish that you be free of these sufferings, the wish that you be happy and without suffering. Feel that in your heart, the real, deep, and loving compassion for yourself. Then imagine that all of your suffering takes the form of gray smoke. It's the quality of being hot and heavy and dark. And it leaves the visualized you. It comes to the meditating you. And you breathe in that smoke through all the pores of your body. All of that smoke dissolving into the white light in your heart center. Until there's not a single particle of smoke left. There's only light. Then you take every good thing about you, all of your qualities, everything that you may need, and adding to that the wish that you attain full enlightenment in this very lifetime. And all of that takes the form of white light, cool and clear, very bright. You breathe out this white light through all the pores of your body. And when this light leaves the meditating you, it goes to the visualized you. And when these rays of light touch the visualized you see all of your suffering just disappearing, lifting off of you. And you see yourself so relaxed, so peaceful and happy. And you feel joyful for being able to do this for yourself. And we move on to the next stage, which is doing that same process for all sentient beings. So first we visualize them all around us, in front, as many beings as we can imagine, stretching all the way to the horizon. To the right, again, as many beings as we can conceive of, all the way to the horizon. Behind, countless beings, all the way to the horizon. And to the left, same thing, all the way to the horizon. So now we're in the middle of a sea of sentient beings, each one of whom has been extraordinarily kind to us in past lives, like a mother, very caring and loving, and each one of whom is currently suffering. So we really want to repay their kindness by attaining enlightenment. So we imagine that all their suffering, whatever it is, takes the form of gray smoke, again, hot, heavy, and dark. It leaves all of them. It comes to you with a great deal of openness, love, and compassion. You breathe that in through all the pores of your body, and all of that smoke just dissolves into the white light in your heart center till there's not a single particle of smoke left. There's only light. And then you offer your own happiness and good fortune, along with anything at all that these beings may need to feel better, to be healed, to be free of suffering, and adding to that the wish that they attain full enlightenment in this lifetime. All of that taking the form of white light, cool and clear, very bright. You breathe out this white light through every single pore of your body, emanating a ray of white light so brilliant and so strong, going in all directions as far as the eye can see, in front to the right, behind to the left. And when these rays of light touch all these beings, each individually, their suffering just lifts off of them and disappears like fog in the morning sun. And each one of these beings feels so happy, so relieved to be finally free of suffering. They feel joyful, and you feel joyful for being able to do this for them. Now we let go of the visualization altogether, gently bringing the mind back to the breath, allowing the breath, that sensation, to bring and keep us in the present moment, here and now. Okay. So now we're going to do the closing prayers. You can join or not as you wish. You can download them. There's a whole bunch of links in the description box below, including signing up for the newsletter, which I highly recommend, including our website if you want to access the class and join us in a couple of weeks for the next session. Welcome to do so. But I'm going to share these long light prayers on the screen. So in case for those of you who may not have had a chance to download them. So here they are. So the first four prayers are long life prayers. These we say just in Tibetan. We start with the Dalai Lama, and then below that, Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche, and then Pema Wangel, and all the teachers. So, Kanri Wowe Kowe Shinkonsu Pendon Dewa Malu Chuene Chenre Zion Denzing Gem Soyi Shabegya Gava to Tengya Shi. Om Swasti Jigme Kempe Kaloya Baru. Gab Se Chen Se Puntawa. Peter Sanam Kano Bucho. Sechega Wesha Gita Su. Om Swasti Silakim Sochin Octin Jule. Nzinda Segu Tu Pamawa. Sansun Nadre Yapota Tene. Abchantan Deshe Dundage Sho. Lama Gungan Sampo Sawada. Shutu Kutse Ringwa Sawada. Trile Tashinge Pasawada. Lama Dandre Wame Pachingilo. Now let's go to the second page, and this first prayer we say once in English, once in Tibetan, the remaining three just in English, and then the 100-syllable mantra. By this merit, pardon me, by this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. Sonandi tomche sikani tobne nepe pranam pomche shin kekana chi balon chupai sipe sole doa sho. May bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise where it has not yet come to be, and where it has arisen, may it never fail, but grow and flourish ever more and more. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may it too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. Ever absorbed in the display of divine forms in primordial awareness, appearance, sound, and perception in the state of divinities, mantras, and dharmakaya. May I, inseparable from the practice of the profound and secret great yoga, attain within the essence of mind the state of one taste. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tenopa Tishta Drito Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Soa Siddhi Me Prayatsa Soa Karma Sutsa Me Chitam Shriyam Guruhum Ha 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 Bhagavan Savatata Vajramame Munsa Vajribhava Mahasamaya Sattva. Okay. All right, so before you disappear, I have a couple of announcements to make. First of all, as I said, you're more than welcome to sign up for the next session, which is continuation, but the book is such that it works to join kind of whenever. So you just find that on our website. Again, all the links are below for that. Also, if you have the capacity to make a donation, we would really appreciate it. We just, even though we don't have physical space anymore, we definitely still need money for all the stuff that we're doing. So we really appreciate anything that you can manage. And it's so meritorious, to support the Dharma. Please like this video if you liked it. It really helps us, and subscribe. Also, if you want to make comments underneath the video, that helps too. Just drive a little more traffic our way. I mean, we're super small, but the more the merrier, and the more people who have access to the Dharma, the better. Also, we have 3 times a month we practice Buddha sadhana. So our next sadhana practice will be this coming Wednesday, October 29th. And that will be from 7:30 to 8. So anybody's welcome to join in that. Again, check out the links below. And then the next one is the following Wednesday. It's not always on Wednesdays, okay? It's just according to the lunar calendar, but it happens to follow 2 Wednesdays in a row. So same thing, 7:30. Everything you need is on the website. Next Saturday, same thing, meditation online, online, like today. So again, any questions that you may have, you are more than welcome to let me know, preferably by Wednesday or Thursday, so that I have a chance to look at the question, prepare, and so forth. You can send them to our email, which should be below. If it's not, it's on the website, info@sgbcc. So Songsan Buddhist Center of Cleveland.org. Okay. Yeah, so that's it. You're very welcome, Liz. Thank you for the nice comment. I'm glad that it was, I hope it was helpful to everyone. That's my goal anyway, and to Rinpoche's goal in sending me to this godforsaken place. No, to this place. So thank you again for joining us this morning, and hope to see you soon. Okay, bye-bye. Love ya.